We took honoring the roots of the IP and the core of The Walking Dead very seriously. So we like really looked at what those themes are about and made sure that they came to life in our game. And we wanted it to be like, if you're a fan of The Walking Dead, either the comic book or the show or both, you come into this game and you're like, oh my God, I'm there. This is it. We worked very closely with Skydance, the creators of The Walking Dead, on this, and really wanted to honor that vision. And early on, these 3 words kept coming up, and it's choice, decision, consequence, right? That's really the soul of Walking Dead. It's about presenting someone with a very difficult choice. They have to make a decision, and then they just have to live with it.
Sure, there's a lot of zombie killing, and you're putting axes through brains and bullets through eye sockets and all that kind of stuff. But as we all know, what makes The Walking Dead such an intriguing world to work in is the fact that we're still telling human stories.
Yeah, setting things in New Orleans in a new setting to kind of have free reign to tell a new story there was super exciting, and it was a fertile ground to create really awesome stories. It's about a year after the outbreak. Society is basically completely deteriorated, and whatever's left is the pieces that those survivors need to pick up. But since we are located in New Orleans, we're not adapting existing comic books or anything like that. This is a brand new story told within that universe in a new exciting location. It's going to have some of the same types of motifs and themes and of course walkers all over the place. But it's going to deal with very different characters and very different scenarios in a vibrant and interesting location. You play as the tourist, who is kind of an individual with an ambiguous background, but somebody who's been making waves, kind of in that oral history stuff that you were talking about, David.
People have been talking about you.
People have been talking, yeah. Yeah. And word about you is getting around that you're an especially effective survivor. You've been making waves in the bayou, and then suddenly you're presented with an opportunity to start on the hunt for something called the Reserve. The Reserve is something that's been fabled about in the wake of the flood, which happened just before the outbreak of walkers. There was plenty of disaster relief supplies flooded into the city, and obviously they'd be quite useful to people who are starving and fighting for survival in flooded New Orleans.
Whoever finds this thing really gets to disrupt the power structure of New Orleans. The themes of the factions is something where we think we're really honoring the soul of The Walking Dead.
In one corner, we have the Tower. They live in this high-rise that kind of looms over the entire city and represents what this faction means to the people in New Orleans.
So the Tower kind of has this vision of anything for survival. You know, we don't care about freedoms, we don't care about individual liberty, we don't care about culture. Everybody does their part, everybody pulls their weight. It's kind of the mechanization of the human condition. With the Reclaimed, their whole thing is like surviving is not living. Like if that's our vision of survival, then we're just walkers already, right? Like we're just chasing our next meal. We don't care about morality, we don't care about culture, we don't care about anything.
And then of course, in the middle of all that, we have the exiles, who are the people who don't necessarily fit in over here and don't necessarily fit in over here. And they're kind of, you know, getting pushed around and stomped on, and you kind of enter into this environment where you're this kind of rogue person who doesn't really fit into any of these factions, but you're doing a little bit here, you're doing a little bit over there, you're working with exiles. So, you know, your impact on the world is huge.
The factions kind of represent these different political ideologies, and everybody's trying to figure out like how to organize the human condition in a way that allows us to survive.
So you have this real great kind of palette to work from, where, you know, there's no right answer.
Yeah, and then caught in the middle, of course, are the people of New Orleans, who are stuck, you know, in between this fight for the soul of the city. That tug of war that's happening is a great breeding ground for cool, interesting scenarios to explore. The immersive qualities of VR, coupled with the inherent fun of skull splitting, like you were saying, in The Walking Dead, they had to be intertwined the entire time. One had to feed into the other, back and forth.
You don't have to choose between skull splitting and story. You can have them both.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that going on the back of the box?